So, finishing product and finishes in general. A lot of it has to do with while you're still at the anvil, while it's still red hot, the shape and the smoothness, the straightness. For me, I do craft sales, and your table is generally 6 feet long. You might have an 8-foot spot, so you might have 2 feet where you can put a couple of taller pieces in. But quite often it's the same size table as this. You've got about 10 seconds as people come up, look at your stuff, decide whether they like it or not before they're gone. And they're off to the pottery person or fine arts or whatever it is. Pretty stiff competition out there. There's some really good artists at craft sales. And in 10 seconds, you got to grab their attention. Flat black jewelry is not going to sell. You're not going to get anybody's attention. It's not going to happen. So that's why I've kind of paid attention to finishes and how to make it look more interesting, how to make it more durable so that if you're wearing a pendant, make sure it doesn't rust. They're not going to be happy with a rusty pendant. And so I've been playing with other materials, things like copper and brass, stainless. So that's where I'm coming from. That's why I wanted to talk about finishes today. Is this level? It doesn't look bad. I welded it on. I kind of went, that looks about right. And that's where most blacksmiths would stop. Looks close enough. Most blacksmiths don't worry about the last 5% getting it just right. We don't worry about it. My personality, I worry about it. And for craft sales, I think I need to worry about it. So what I would do is grab a stick, a piece of wood, a pen, and just measure, are these lobes consistent? And I can see this side is low, this side is high. Low, high, pull it back just a bit. So that is now square. I don't know if you can see the difference, but when it's right, your eye catches that it's right. Your eye doesn't catch that it's wrong, but your eye catches when it's right. And you want your candle to be straight, not sort of,
You know what? Why don't you crank it like a little bit of a degree like it would be and see.
So you can see that's not right.
Yeah.
Put it back where it was. That looks right. And so that's the difference between that little bit of almost and just grabbing a stick to measure it. Give it one last bop. Yep, that's pretty close. And then when you're trying to make sure something is straight, make sure it's straight, make sure it's level, finish it. Put that little bit, that last 5%, it's never going to be perfect. But when people walk by, they're going to go, that looks right. If it looks right, it's going to sell better. So that's why I put in that little bit extra. Let's finish it just right. So this has been pickled. The bottom half is pickled, the top half has not been pickled. What is pickled? This is pickling. It's
okay. Don't
vinegar.
come to this one because it just.
That's all it is. White vinegar.
I'm pretty sure.
Poured it in. It's
and we're
acidic enough that it dissolves the scale on the outside of the steel. After forging, give it a good scrub. I don't have my big scrub brush here. Oh well. I think they'll be all right.
It's not
They know what a big
properly
scrub brush
focused.
is.
Okay.
Get the big scrub brush. Get that scale off while it's hot. Once it gets cold, it sticks a lot harder. So it won't. Red,
Oh.
give it a good scrub. That helps clean up the scale. If you're just going to paint the product at that point, good scrub, move on, paint it. But if you're going to put a finish on that you see the steel, like linseed oil, wax, clear coat, put it in the pickle. It eats the scale. If you do some forging after supper, you put it in overnight, come back the next morning, and it all just sort of washes away. So that's just fresh out of the pickle. I put that in maybe an hour ago. I should have put it in sooner, but of course forgot. I've been busy. So you put it in. This is just plain water. I got it out of the rain barrel, which filled up quickly yesterday. And a lot of that scale just falls right off. It turns to a black powder.
Oh, you should look at the water. You can see like all the how much scale you came off of it.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see.
No, they won't be able to see that.
The water turned gray the second I did it.
Tell.
There's still a lot of scale
Okay,
on there,
behind
but
here.
It's you can kind of tell the water color at least.
it's better. Anyways. Okay. So that's the
But
pickle for an hour.
yeah, vertical. Remember?
Pickle. You can see the bottom is whiter, top is blacker. The water that was slightly brownish is now quite black.
Yeah.
It's a gray color. So a lot of
Oh,
when you put it in overnight, I just take the scrub brush, pull it out in the wash tub, give the scrub. It just runs black for a minute. I don't try to neutralize the vinegar. I used to put a bit of baking soda on it. I never saw it bubble. I wash it off, I scrub it off, and then I go to the wire wheel and remove a layer of steel. So I don't think there's any vinegar that needs to be removed or neutralized. So I've stopped worrying about it. So that's pickling.
Okay.
It works really well.
James says it's a good way to restore old tools.
Yes. So it removes rust on files, tools. It's not a really super harsh acid. Just gently removes rust from steel, old tools. Yep, it's great stuff. So the most basic finishes is paint. Everybody's painted. It's easy to find. It's cheap. Goes on easy. Relatively easy for cleanup. You got two types. You got the brush on, and then you got the spray on. Spray on, well, both of them come in gloss or flat matte finish. You can get semi-clear, semi-gloss in the spray on as well. I'm going to start with the spray on. Now, what can I tell you about paint? You guys know paint, but there's a few things that maybe I can introduce you to. Spray on is quick, it's easy, no cleanup, and you're done. Probably need 2 coats at least to get a good protection for the steel. All right, so this is the gloss. You can, when I move it, you can see the dings and the dents. On the back is flat. Hopefully that's about the same. Same angle. You don't see the dings and the dents as much. The dings you might see, but the scalloped edges you're probably not catching at all. The flat does not reflect the sunlight, or light off of it, and therefore you don't see the dings and the dents. Full gloss, you see the dings and the dents.
Tilt it back towards you. Don't turn it. Just there you go. Perfect.
And so for me, I actually go with the gloss to show that it's hand forged, leaving some of the dings and the dents. You know, that's why I tell customers. I purposely left some dings and dents. And I like to highlight the fact that it's hand forged. Traditionally, at the start of the Industrial Revolution, anything that was made on a machine was seen as more cutting edge, more modern.
That one back?
Sure. So the machinery in the cities were cutting edge and they were modern, the latest and the greatest. And of course, you wanted the latest and the greatest, and you wanted that machine-made finish. Anything that was hammered, textured, that looked old, backwoods kind of thing. And so you really tried to get rid of all those dings and dents. Flat paint helps to hide all those dings and dents. Looked machine-made. At this point in time, anything handmade is seen as more interesting. Everybody has machine-made stuff. Who makes handcrafted stuff anymore? And so I like to highlight the fact that it's handmade. Get those dings and dents. Highlight that fact. So that's why I go with gloss black for probably pretty much all the stuff that I paint black. If the customer wants it flat black, it's flat black. That's the only time. Otherwise, I go gloss black. And if I can avoid black at all, I will. All right. So the red
Perfect. I can see it rippling.
has the vertical. Red is brush on paint. You always get lines in the. Oh, I think we lost it.
I think
So this is brush on. You always get streaks with the brush on. And by the way, I paint basically everything with this brush. It's easy to clean up. You dip it. If it's a big railing, I just touch it just enough that it's not drip, 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 drip. And you can cover a lot of steel with a brush this size. And if it's a small little piece, you can wipe it a lot more often. You can get a little more detail. But this is the brush I use for everything.
Okay.
Brush on, you get the streaks.
Yeah. Just gonna leave that be.
The spray on, you don't get streaks. So my rule of thumb is, if it's an indoor piece, go spray. If you're up close, you're gonna see it.
We're live.
So indoor use, go spray on. If it's outdoor use, a railing, a bench, a gate, garden ornament, go paint on. Go brush on. You get a lot more paint. It goes on thicker as well. So 2 coats of brush on is pretty thick paint. You're going to need probably 3-4 coats of spray on to equal that protection. 2 coats of spray on is fine for indoor. For outdoor, it's still pretty thin. So when I'm cleaning my brush, by the way, latex does not stick to steel. You might be able to get a primer to stick and then paint this primer for latex. But this is all Rust-Oleum or Tremclad, which I think is actually the same company, just different names for the same stuff. It's oil-based. A lot harder to clean up your brushes, which is one reason I use this small little brush. I use 2 tin cans and recycled mineral spirits. The first tin can, put a splash in, rinse, rinse, rinse. pour it into the big can. Let's fit it in, rinse, rinse, rinse. Pour it into the big can. You've got 95% of the paint out of your brush at that point. Wipe it with a cloth. Get that bar salt
There you go.
out. So I put it in here. Never mind. Rinse in the big can. Pour it into the small can. I do that. In 3 weeks, that paint will be sticking to the side of the can and falling to the bottom of the can. The tin can attracts the paint and it sticks to the tin can.
Mm-hmm.
And in 3 weeks, you have clear mineral spirits again. So this, I've been using that same bottle for I don't know how many years. I just keep recycling it. All right, so this is actually automotive paint. This is 84 Marquee Blue. Had it kicking around. And automotive paint has gold flake or silver flake in it. And it's a far more interesting color. It's a lot more expensive. You need the primer
Yeah, light wouldn't hurt.
to be able to stick the paint to. So that's the gray primer here, and then the automotive paint on top. So I've been using that for Christmas decorations. What I've been doing. Small little ornaments.
I go
small
around the
little
other
bits,
side a bit.
And
Don't worry, the frame's really tight. You
gives
can.
you a really much more interesting finish. If you're new to blacksmithing, have you seen the brass brush trick? David Brando talks about making things gold. That's his demonstration last month. I hope you just caught it on the YouTube channel if you didn't catch it live. You take a brass brush when it's hot, not red hot, 500-degree kind of hot. Relatively cold for blacksmiths. So this blacksmithing demonstration, we're not actually going to light the torch at all. We're just going to use a few torch a few times.
It's like 800
This
degrees.
800 degrees out. I was actually forging yesterday.
There's a reason mine's rusty. I don't come out in the summer. Nope, that is my fall winter project.
Well, it's 5 degrees is nice.
Yeah, I get more done in the month of like October than I do through like all of the summer spring.
Right. Anyway, so that's probably hot enough. All right, coming back.
Yep.
And then you just brush it with your brass brush.
Yep. David says it's a magic brush he got from a princess. Her name is Princess Otto.
Oh! Oh! Wow, that's brutal. Anyways, so that gives you a nice, interesting look. It's very quick. You hit that with your, I'll call this clear as not, but when you hit that with your clear coat to seal it, the clear coat generally dries in about 10 minutes.
You're out of frame, by the way.
Quick, dries in about 10 minutes. You got a really nice finish for highlights on a leaf or maybe the edges of a bowl, something ornamental. Piece of jewelry, put a bunch of work into it, and you can hit the highlights. All right, we got a couple of different waxes here. That's paraffin. Paraffin is a petroleum product. It's quite soft. It's not the best for finishing steel. It'll coat it, keep the oxygen away, but I wouldn't recommend it. Beeswax is a little tougher. All right, so this is wax, beeswax, and so that was my sample piece. That was pretty shiny, and all right, got filthy fingers. I don't know if you can see the fingerprint in there. Wax, it's easier to apply.
It's actually my favorite finish.
Wax is your favorite finish?
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah. But like it gives you the same kind of look as a clear coat almost.
Yeah.
But
yeah, again, it goes on easy. Put it on hot, like David was saying last time. It goes on hot, and it seeps into the cracks and crevices, the pores. Whether steel actually has pores, wood has pores, but the wax
Hang on.
down here.
Yep.
So just rub it on. There it is. Got a good thick coat on that already. That's waxed. Very quick, very easy. It's not the strongest finish in the world. It's not the strongest finish. For outdoor use, garden ornament or something, I wouldn't recommend wax for outdoor. Indoor, for a candle holder, beeswax will work. I find it slightly sticky still and attracts a bit of dust. Floor wax, which I don't have, is a little bit
Yeah, you
harder.
do. You want me to get it for you?
No, don't worry about it. Floor wax is a little harder and probably won't have that same sticky dust buildup. And there's something called Renaissance wax that you can get off the internet. Apparently, it's really tough wax, meant more for museums and things, and fairly expensive. That's like the hardest wax. It goes on the same. Just heat it up, melt it in, polish it up, and it comes up to a full gloss. So Renaissance wax would be the best.
Now, what about the
Floor wax is good.
wax and linseed mix?
All right.
Blacksmith.
Dustin here is wondering about wax and oiled linseed. All right. So I'm going to jump to oiled linseed oil. Oil is an oil that you can paint on. This one I painted on. It's with my brush. And there's a few bubbles, some streaks in it. Normally you put it on with a cloth on it. Anyways. It seals. I find it slightly sticky once it does dry. And it takes a long time to dry. This sample, I noted that it took about 2 weeks before it was dry. But that's a pretty thick coat. Thinner coat would have been a few days. But don't be in a rush with this one. It does work. You can put it back in the fire. Coat it. Goes into the fire, and it dries it much quicker.
Yeah.
This is probably the cheapest finish you're going to get. Just oil. We'll come back to Blacksmith Goop in a minute, which is oil, linseed oil, and wax and turpentine. Okay. I don't have any other oils that I've samples, pieces ready, but you can oil things too. I generally oil just with motor oil my anvils. At the end of the day, I've got a cloth, just a dirty, filthy, oily rag that I'm just gonna wipe the handle of the face of my hammer, and then lay the cloth across the anvil. You can see this is not rusty.
Like mine.
All right.
Well,
I don't do that.
I'll point out.
Do
Rusty, not rusty.
uh,
And there's the difference. You certainly wouldn't want that for a finished product because it'd be oily and slimy.
Oh.
The other way to do it is if you've ever seasoned a cast iron frying pan, the vegetable oil in there, you heat it up, it starts smoking. It's more of an outdoor activity, but it starts smoking, the oil dries, and you get that black layer that protects the cast iron. Seasoning it, that works as well for oils. You can have a mixture of
hang on. Almost there.
wax,
Wait for it.
oiled linseed oil, and turpentine.
There we go.
That's the one. I'm thinking.
And there's the
Right.
honey shell.
So I've always heard it called blacksmith goop. I don't know if there's a proper name for it.
I've always just called it my wax finish.
Do a wax
Um,
finish.
But like, it's because when I started, that was what I was told to use. Was basically that mix was taking the actual beeswax and then mixing it with the linseed oil and a little bit of turpentine.
Right.
It's like that's just what I was told. And then when it hardened back up, you can then take the block and just like,
Okay. Are we on the end with it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is my sample for the blacksmith goop.
Mm,
Blacksmith goop is a combination of wax, boiled linseed oil, and turpentine. And that gives a beautiful, smooth finish that is not sticky. It is
shiny.
shiny. It is nice. It's hard. It's a great finish. Very durable. It's 1/3 wax, 1/3 boiled linseed oil, 1/3 turpentine. So if you got I don't know, a tablespoon of wax, just kind of cut it out. That's it. Plunk. A tablespoon of I gotta go back here.
Yep.
Tablespoon of boiled linseed oil and tablespoon of turpentine. I put it in a tin can and heat it up on the side burner of the barbecue. Turpentine is going to fume and can ignite. So I'm not sure this is quite an indoor activity on the stove. But all you're doing is heating it up to the point that the wax melts. I'm not going for a high heat of any sort. So
I usually melt the wax first and then just add in the other stuff.
Okay.
It's already liquid.
So however you want to do it, melt the wax first or in the oil. As long as you melt the wax is the key here. The other two ingredients are liquid to start, and they stir in beautifully. Once the wax melts, it forms a paste. So this is just pickled steel as far as I know. Just rub it on.
Yeah.
Better than clear coat.
It's simple, it's easy.
We're
Once it starts to dry a bit, then you can polish it up, and it just makes a beautiful finish. Super easy, super nice finish. So wax, I
It doesn't work with paraffin.
it does not work with
No, like
paraffin.
it's got to be the beeswax because of the hardening.
Okay,
Like if
there's
you try with the paraffin, I found it gets like oily, like you were saying when it's pre-melted.
Right.
It kind of just stayed there. I didn't have luck with that. I had to actually get the beeswax.
all right. So beeswax, not paraffin, and we recommend this one. Tempering colors. So what we're looking at right now is pickled, unpickled, and to see that the pickling, you can see the colors. Unpickled, you don't see the colors. It's much darker background. You don't get those colors. So what you're doing for tempering is you're heating it up, and you get, especially for knife making, you get that sand color to a darker brown to a purple to a blue. And so I call them tempering colors. They can be really quite nice colors. I've got a on the other side here, there, and that is not painted on or anything. That's just tempering colors. You're heating it up, and it's an oxide. I use tempering colors on jewelry, Christmas ornaments, stuff that you bowls, things that you're going to be up close and seeing, and it gives a really cool effect, kind of iridescence, And it's a very simple thing to do. You got to pickle it though, get that scale off. The colors will be brighter. The rougher the texture it seems, the brighter the colors. So that treble clef,
You're going to need to get those closer.
yeah. Anyways, the treble clef, I think, has a rougher texture than the sheet metal, and therefore the colors popped a bit more. The downside is you're going to have a rougher texture and more, grind lines and things if you get too coarse a texture. You can't sand out the lines once it's been tempered like that. I would then clear coat it, seal it, and you get a really cool finish on that. So I do this on the side burner of the barbecue. On the stove, we got a gas stove. You can do it with the torch. I've kind of tried it with the burner of the gas forge. It's a little intense. All right, I think the other side actually has paint on it. So yeah, that's maybe not the best choice.
You need a piece of steel from your scrap bucket.
What's that?
You need a piece of steel from your
Yeah, I
scrap
gave away
bucket.
all my scrap last month. I don't have any scrap left. David, you got any scrap?
That'll teach you.
Actually, I got a pile of scrap.
Shouldn't be so absent-minded.
Blacksmith doesn't have a pile of scrap.
Exactly.
You never give away all your scrap.
No, you never give away the good
Yeah,
stuff.
you give away the crappy
You
stuff.
give away the
Scrap.
I saw lots demonstration. Yeah, I gave David all this
What's
real
that?
crap.
You can see the colors coming on the side.
We're getting close there. I'm going to show one more that the blacksmiths can do at home, and then then we'll get into the different materials that you can use. Rust is a finish. It's not a personal favorite of mine, but I can personal choice, yes. But for say a garden ornament, if somebody out there was crazy enough to make like a full-size pterodactyl for their garden, you might want to just leave it, and it turns rusty, that nice brown
When
color.
you put a clear coat over it as well, it essentially stops the oxidization from outside.
Okay.
So I've seen people do it on like cars, where they'll take the paint right off of the hood of
Yes.
their car, let it rust, and then seal it, and you end up with this rust bucket, but it's protected now, and basically seal it.
So I don't know if you caught that, but you can rust it and then seal it with a clear coat, and then you get that sealed rust look, and it looks interesting. Anyways, where were we? We were trying to rust things.
Oh, also, if you purposely rust something to clear the rust off to cause pitting as well, to get a pitted look when you clear coat it afterwards is another popular choice to make something look older.
Distressed.
Yeah, to distress it.
Sure. Okay. You get it pitted, get it that distressed look, and it looks quite interesting. So the recipe I got off the internet was 2 cups of hydrogen peroxide, 4 tablespoons of vinegar, and 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And then you shake that up into a spray bottle and just spray it on. And it rusts almost immediately. And your pterodactyl will look super cool at that point.
James was wondering if the paraffin wax is good for anything.
Paraffin is great for candles. That's about it.
Yeah, Marion said there was an industrial tool wax
Industrial tool wax.
for lubricating your,
Look at that Lee Valley.
yeah,
Lee Valley tool wax.
for lubricating your high-speed cutting.
Okay. Thank you to whoever.
Marianne.
Marianne, yeah.
Marion, thank you for the suggestion of industrial wax at Lee Valley. All right, didn't know that one. Cool. We're done with the home brew. We're moving on to the not home brew.
Back to the
All right.
Oh, you moved. All right.
We're back to the anvil again.
Yep.
What is this? What finish is this?
Chrome.
Chrome. Chrome is a great finish. It's very hard, very durable, looks great. It is not for the home brew person. Chrome produces a nasty poison called hexavalent chromium, and it cannot be disposed of safely in the environment. And you are responsible for that poison
Yeah, this one
forever.
back?
Yep.
Okay.
And just leave it to the professionals to chrome. Don't even think of chroming things. It is not worth it. We got back the anvil. What is it?
Oh, that's
This
galvanized.
is galvanized. Zinc coated. You heat up zinc in a big tub to, I think it's 840 degrees. 840 degrees, and then you dip your steel in it. This is the world standard for outdoor finishes. It is very durable. First of all, it coats so the oxygen doesn't get to the part, and the zinc protects the steel by oxidizing before the steel does. So even if it's nicked, generally the zinc will oxidize first. It's maybe not the best choice for blacksmiths though, because it fills in all the little details. So if you've done a leaf and you've got the veins all beautifully lined up, you're gonna lose all those details. It's gonna fill in with the galvanizing. So lasts great, but it's maybe not the best for the home blacksmith. And if you're getting something galvanized, it cannot be soldered together. I'm not sure brazed is acceptable. And it cannot be a sealed pipe because you're heating it up to 840 degrees. So if you're doing a gate or a railing, hollow pipe that's welded top and bottom is not allowed. You have to drill a hole in there to allow it to breathe. That's something you send out. It's sandblasted and then galvanized. What is it?
It's coil spring.
Coil spring, something like that. Yeah, I know. It's a knife making tool. Right?
Makes some nice chisels.
Beautiful for chisel making, spring steel. But we're looking at finishes today.
Yeah.
So this is powder coated. Powder coated is essentially sprayed on, baked on plastic. It's starting to come apart a bit. You take plastic powder and you're spraying it on.
I know.
It sticks electrostatically, so the conveyor belt that it's on, steel track, is negatively charged, and the powder sticks to it, and sticks to it. Goes through an oven on this steel track, comes out the other side, and it bakes on. It becomes a liquid and sticks. This stuff works really well. It's cheaper than galvanizing. Are we back over here?
Mm-hmm.
Sticks really well. But once it gets scratched, it's hard, well, basically impossible to repair. And will continue to rust and pull apart. Something like a railing, a gate. Yeah, it'll work. It's you have to send it out. It's a little expensive. The hard part for the blacksmiths is trying to find somebody who will talk to you. At one point, I had an order for ashtray stands, and I assumed I needed to have them powder coated because they'd be outdoor use. Turns out, no, they were actually for cigar bars and therefore indoor use, which surprised me. So I never actually used the powder coater, but trying to find a shop that will talk to you. Yeah, I need 10 pieces powder coated. No, they have zero interest. They want a $10,000 order, not $50 order. Trying to find somebody who will talk to you and powder coat is a little tough. All right, I think that's it for the finishes of the that you are sort of apply finishes. We're going to move to uh, different kinds of steels. This is aluminum. You can forge aluminum.
There you go. Yeah.
It's a little tough to forge aluminum because it doesn't glow. Steel glows red hot. Copper-based materials glow red hot. You know when it's hot. Aluminum, you don't know when it's hot until it's a liquid. So trying to forge aluminum is a little tough. So what you do, you heat it up. This works best in a coal forge, by the way. Well, you would say everything works best in a coal forge, except hot dogs. Don't cook hot dogs in a coal forge. Too much sulfur. So what you're doing is you're heating it up, and you rub it with a stick. When you rub it with a stick, nothing happens when it's cold. When it gets hot, you start leaving ash behind. It starts to burn the stick, and you know it's starting to get hot. Pull it up, hit it. Repeat. That's your pyrometer.
That is a great test.
It's very simple. It does work. You got to be careful. Low and slow heat. Otherwise, you're just going to have a little puddle in the back. Copper, you can forge. You put it in the forge. This works best in a gas forge, I
Okay.
find. And you heat it up. Just as soon as you see that faintest red, pull it out. Don't. You're going to need tongs. Copper conducts heat very quickly. So even though this is glowing red, this is going to still burn you. So get your tongs, pull it out, and hit it. You can either quench it and hammer it cold. Quenching it anneals it so it's soft. So you can hit it, work it cold. I can't be bothered. I generally work it hot. Pull it out of the forge, hit it, shape it. Now work it hot. It polishes up beautifully. Gets that nice copper color to it. It's fairly soft. About 3 strikes in it, and it starts to harden up. Don't hit it too long, or it'll crack on you. Back in the fire, get it red, hit it again. Keep going. If it turns bright red, pull it out and hope for the best. Let it cool down. You hit it bright red, it's just going to crumble on you. It's going to be a mess. Hopefully it kind of comes back together and doesn't shred. One thing that I didn't mention about the pickling, when you heat up copper-based materials or stainless, it does oxidize. It takes a lot longer to oxidize, but it will oxidize over time, turns black. It happens very quickly in the high heat. Pickling will remove that scale. So you, again, wire wheel it, get that black oxide off, and then your comes up beautifully. Brass. Oy!
I told you.
A paper towel holder. One day I was driving home from work. It was recycling day, and I saw this sticking out of a blue bin. I was like, I must stop and steal this. And it's a shell, a brass shell, and near as we can tell, it's never
There we
been
go.
fired. And somebody opened it up and made a vase out of it. I'm like,
Umbrella
nice.
stand.
Gotta get that. So I've had this, I don't know how many years now. Does brass forge? This particular brass, no. This is shell brass. It does not forge. Most brass does not. Cast brass, no. You need forgeable brass. I'm not sure if forgeable brass is an exact style. Naval brass for bells is a specific mixture. What I'm twirling in my hand currently is low fuming bronze. Do we want to switch over to the
Okay.
low fuming bronze is forgeable. So this has been in the forge. You see the oxide starting to form. Trying to make it square. This is welding rod. This is I got from the local welding supply store, and it's called low fuming bronze. But brass is, by our standards, copper and zinc mixed together. So I'm looking at the package. Low fuming bronze is the title, and I'm looking at the chemical composition to make sure there's no lead or arsenic in here. And there wasn't, thankfully. And it's copper, zinc, which by definition is brass, even though it's called low fuming bronze. It's the way it is. The best guess, I talked to somebody, and his best guess is pre-World War II. It was a bit of a free-for-all, and you call it what you want to call it. There was no exact science behind it. And so it was called low fuming bronze before World War II, and therefore that's what it's called, even though it's brass. So this is forgeable. Again, put it in, slightest red, and then start working it. I like using it in the gas forge because you can see it glow red. Coal forge, it's buried in there, you can't see it. I find this stuff to be a little mushy when it's hot. It's really soft. You gotta take it easy. You give it a good pounding, it's just gonna, like hitting a grate. It's gonna be a mess. Take it easy until it's mushy, mushy, mushy hard. There's a transition that it just stops. And stop hitting it. Put it back in the forge. It will crack. It does come apart. It's not bad to work with though. Just take it slow and easy. Bronze. I don't have my piece of bronze here, but my ring is not gold. This is silicone bronze. I'm going to put a penny next to that. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
All right. So that's silicone bronze. Years ago, I won a piece of silicone bronze in Iron in the Hat. Marty donated the silicone bronze, And so I made a ring out of it. Just took a hole saw and a drill, cut a hole in it, put it on a mandrel, which was a socket from Canadian Tire,
Okay.
and just started tap, 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 expanded it out until it was about the right size, polished it up, and there we go. Mostly I was interested in, will this rust, oxidize? And the answer is marginally. I haven't polished this. I haven't polished this in quite some time, and it's not bad. The reason I grabbed a penny, the inside is starting to oxidize, which is up against my skin all the time. You'll note. Are we live?
No. Just walk up to the camera.
My finger is not green, is essentially what I'm wanting to show you. That if you had copper and you made a ring out of copper, your finger turns green. The silicone bronze is very weather resistant, very difficult to oxidize. It's meant for marine use. Ship propellers are silicone bronze. And so it doesn't oxidize easily. It will oxidize a little bit over time. Gives that copper penny look to it on the inside. So periodically, I do polish it. Periodically being every, 4 months. My gold ring, I never polished ever. Maybe once every 2 years, just to get the worst of the dings and dents out and give it a slight shine. This guy I wear all the time. I don't worry about sandpaper and files and beating it up because, well, I can make another one.
And we're good again with the close-up.
All right. Silicone bronze is forgeable. Aluminum bronze is also forgeable. By definition, bronze is copper tin mixture. Well, silicone bronze is copper and 3% silicone. Silicone is an element, by the way, not bathroom caulking. It's a silicone. Silicon is like Silicon Valley. It is an element, a semiconductor.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to make things quite impervious to rust. So silicone bronze, 97%, 98%, 97% copper, 3% silicone. And it does not rust easily. You heat it up. If I have my faucet piece here, or bronze piece, heat it up again, just slightest red, and then start hitting it. Or you can anneal it in water, cool it, work it cold if you want. Both work. And it polishes up to a beautiful shine and is very weather resistant. So if you're making a rosette for your gate, again, you can make a beautiful, polished, goldy looking rosette, and it lasts a long time before it starts to oxidize. It's stainless steel. Actually, let me grab my spoon. This is my Kool-Aid spoon. I made this about 15 years ago, maybe a bit longer. I was in Kitchener. I'm pretty sure I was at two Smiths, Sandra Dunn and Mike Steve White. They were demonstrating copper and dishing something on a sandbag. You heat it up with a torch, quench it in water, and then you put it on a sandbag, and you can then dish down your copper sheet. Well, I went home and went, hey, I got stainless steel sheet, like we all do, right? So I made a spoon out of it. You can see how symmetrical it is. It's like, nowadays, what I would do is I would draw it right on the anvil. You flip it over, you can see where the high points are, where it's not symmetrical. Grind off those high points until it is symmetrical. You flip it back and forth. For you new guys, there you go. Flip it back and forth until it's symmetrical in either direction, then dish it. Anyways, I just put that on a 2x4, hit it with a ball peen hammer to dish down the handle, and I've stirred Kool-Aid with this for 15 years. It's never rusted, which is important for our discussion. Can you forge stainless? The answer is yes. Should you forge stainless? My suggestion is no. This is a piece of 304 stainless. It moves about as well as spring steel. I tried some 318, which has more alloy in it, and that moves about as well as H13. You hit it, it just sort of laughs at you. You keep hitting it, it moves, but it is really slow. It is really tough stuff. 304, it moves, it's not too bad. But after you've forged it, they rust. Do you want to grab the hook off the top there, Peter? And everybody says that it rusts because of transfer from the anvil and the hammer. Thanks. And I've never really believed it because I hit this with a hammer and it never rusted. Why, when I'm hitting this, is it rusting? And if you are getting that much steel transfer from your hammer, you're going to wear out your hammer in a year. I've never worn out a hammer. Dustin was talking about century-old anvils. They don't wear out.
No.
So, transfer? I don't know. I was just kind of going, no, I'm not quite seeing it. So I called up our metallurgist, Gord Snelling, sent him an email, and said, why does it rust? And he says that it's a chemical reaction inside the steel. The way stainless protects itself is you've got an invisible layer. The chromium has to be 11% chrome in the stainless to be stainless steel. At 11%, the oxygen binds with the chrome to make chromium oxide. And that coats the steel in chromium oxide, and it doesn't rust anymore. Get below 11%, you don't have enough chromium to make that layer, and it starts to rust. In the forge, what happens is you're introducing carbon. If you've studied knife making, you know that carbon can migrate through steel. It moves around from high concentration to low concentration. And that's how you do case hardening. You pack a low carbon part in high carbon material, heat it up, the carbon will migrate into the mild steel, producing an outer layer of high carbon or medium carbon steel, and you case harden it. That's the way files are made now, is case hardening. The old files,
That's why they don't work for knife making.
a new file will not work for knife making. The core is mild steel. You got to find the old files to get a high carbon steel. Carbon migrates through steel, and chromium loves carbon apparently, and it will bind together. You now have reduced your available chromium below 11%. and therefore it rusts. So to solve the problem, what you can do is you can sand it down a little bit. We're only talking half a millimeter. But inside the twirl here, how are you going to get in there to sand it? A leaf. If you got the veins on the leaf, how are you going to sand that down? It's going to be really tough to do. So stainless is not the blacksmith's friend. It does work. You can forge it, but it ends up rusting.
Brian says a properly tuned gas forge shouldn't introduce much carbon. Induction heating would be better.
All right, induction heating is the way to go for stainless, and possibly gas is better than coal. All right, it does sound possible. Induction, yeah, that's great stuff.
Well, yeah, you got one.
For the beginners, I missed polishing copper and aluminum and any other of these bright materials. If you're a beginner, these are buffing wheels, and I've got the brown, which is a fairly coarse polish, and I've got the red. And so you would polish with the brown first. It gets up to a almost mirror finish. Switch out your wheel to a red, which is the finest, and it brings it up to a mirror finish. Try not to mix up your wheels, otherwise your red's going to have brown on it and you're going to struggle to get that mirror finish. And in the description of the today's talk, I was going to talk about electro polishing and electroplating. So if you put that in a water bath, either with a bit of acid or baking soda, the current will go from one side to the other. And for removing scale off your part, the electricity and the acid removes the scale much quicker. But it's a line of sight. So this side will become polished, or the scale will come off, and this side won't. It's faster than pickling, but pickling gets all around. So I can see for industry, they want it faster. They can't wait 8 hours for a pickle overnight. So electro polishing for industry makes some sense. For the backyard blacksmith, are you really that much of a rush to get your Christmas ornaments finished up? For me, I played with this enough to realize that I see a lot more downsides for the blacksmith. Generally, you're using sulfuric acid, which is a nasty acid. Better be careful with that. You don't want that in your eyes. Rather than vinegar, which is not that bad. I don't think you want it in your eyes, but it's not nearly as scary. This stuff, electro polishing, only goes in one direction, not in all directions. So I kind of stopped playing with electro polishing at that point when I realized this is not better than pickling. Pickling will remove the oxide on the outside of this. If I put that in for a couple hours, I would just wash all the way, come up nice and clean. Electroplating is the reverse. You switch the leads. If this is the part I wanted copper plated, the copper comes off and electrically sticks to the steel. and that's how you plate. Doing it this way, you get just the thinnest little plating on it. I actually get plating in the pickle. I put some brass or bronze, I don't know what I put in the pickle there, and it comes out copper plated. And so it's doing the same thing, but just much slower. So that's why I stopped using, trying to figure out electro polishing, electro plating, because I just didn't see the upside. I saw a lot of negatives, and went, yeah, I think I can do better elsewhere. So I haven't really studied electro polishing and electro plating that much, because pickling is so great. It just takes a long time. But wow. All right, that's metal finishes. I think that's about it. I'm looking around going, Blacksmith Goop. All right. Hopefully we can have another meeting next month. I'm not sure what we're doing. I'm open to suggestions. And hopefully this pandemic ends sooner than later and we can get back to meeting in person. Today I should have been at the warehouse and you could have had a tour of the museum and it would have been a lot of fun. But that's not an option. We have to stay safe. Important. So let's hang in there. Wear your mask when you're out in public. Stay safe. Stay in your little bubble of 10 people or so. And we'll put an end to this so we can get back to normal life sooner than later. All right, we'll talk to you later.